new age has begun. An age of freedom. And all who know that 300 Spartans gave their last breath to defend it.
Zack, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I guess the obvious question is how did you get involved with 300 to start with?
I got involved with, well, I'm a bit of a Frank Miller freak. I think Frank is pretty awesome. And I got the comics as singles when they first came out. And then later it got turned into a book, you know, the book that we all know now. And then, and so I had it on my shelf, but I never really thought it would be a movie. I thought, oh, this is awesome. But the idea of making it a movie was more of a film school fantasy than an actual, you know, that would actually happen. What happened was one of the producers, Gianni Nunari, we were in his office talking about what movies would be cool, and he had a copy of the graphic novel on his desk. And I said, you want to know what would be a cool movie? 300 would be a cool movie. And he went and actually called Frank Miller, and he set up a meeting between Frank and I, and then after that we got to write. So it was kind of a surprise and kind of frightening, actually, in a lot of ways.
Now, the original comic book, so it's 88 pages. How do you convert 88 pages into almost 2 hours of screen time?
Well, there's a lot of fighting in the movie. There's that, and also we added a secondary story with the Queen back home in Sparta. That's the only real difference between the movie and the graphic novel, I think.
Now, if you're a leading man, you need someone who sort of embodies hero and strength. So, you know, when did you first come up with Gerard Butler?
I met Jerry. He came out. We were looking for a leading man, you know, and it's a hard search, you know, to find that right guy. And I had a very specific idea about what I wanted him to look like. Basically, I had a graphic novel that had pictures of him in it, which is kind of fun. And I really kind of believed in the idea of casting characters that looked kind of like what was in the graphic novel. It's kind of a, you know, it was a thing I felt made sense. And so I met Jerry at a coffee shop, and he was ranting. He had his own copy of the book, okay. And he had this philosophy immediately that the idea of playing Leonidas in a similar way to Frank has rendered him in the graphic novel, almost physically the same. He had that on his own, and I thought that was that was a cool coincidence, because it was the way I had imagined that he should do it. That we really wanted to get the spirit of the graphic novel into the movie, and that's what I think Jerry brought in a fantastic way.
I mean, there's no getting away from it. It's a very violent film,
yeah.
in its own way. Was there ever any, not necessarily pressure, but did anyone from the studio at any point said, look, this is the rating we're aiming for, we might need to tone it down, we might need to alter things?
I think a little bit, but I believe, you know, I told them from the beginning what kind of movie I wanted to make. I'm very specific about pretty much every part of the movie. And the one thing I was really adamant about was that the film's going to be sexy and it's going to be violent. And there's just no two ways around that. Don't do it otherwise. You know, that was my feeling. I said it's an intensely... I wanted the violence to be beautiful, too, in its own way. I know that sounds strange, but I wanted it to... Because the film is told from a Spartan point of view. And I think that Spartans, their version of violence is different from, you know, the reality of violence. You know, they tend to want to glorify and sort of enjoy the violence, because that's their aesthetic, and they're aesthetic creatures. And so that was kind of that was the approach to it.
Talk time!